Greetings, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, members of the public. This is Brenda Lopez, Interim Housing Director, and this item is regarding the loan agreement by and between the City of Oxnard and the Oxnard Housing Authority. I will first start with a brief background. In 2008, the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard, hereinafter referred to as the Housing Authority, received authorization from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, hereinafter referred to as HUD, to demolish 260 existing public housing units on the Colonia Village public housing site. The Housing Authority and UHC 00558LP, hereinafter referred to as UHC, entered into a development agreement dated September 18, 2012, which was then amended on June 1st, 2015, to demolish and replace the structures with new affordable housing units. UHC obtained all the necessary entitlements for the project, which included a tentative tract map that was approved on December 9th, 2014. UHC completed its first phase of the project, known as Las Cortes, also referred to as the courts, consisting of 144 units, including 2 manager units, again of affordable housing units. UHC's second phase, which were to consist of 129 units, consisted of 2 manager units of affordable housing units, were never constructed. Due to UHC's numerous delays in the start of the second phase, there were several ongoing issues with trespassing, loitering, and criminal activity in the vacant units and surrounding areas. In June of 2020, the Housing Authority and UHC entered into an agreement in an amount not to exceed $2.5 million for demolition costs. The actual expenditures totaled $2,332,619. The repayment would be based on residual receipts of the project. The total amount due to the Housing Authority as of March 31st, 2025 was $2,655,505, which includes both the principal and interest. The tentative tract map expired on November 13th, 2023. Therefore, the Housing Authority issued a notice of default to UHC on February 26, 2024, followed by a termination notice on April 10th, 2024. UHC rejected the termination notice, claiming that it had complied with all terms and invoked a termination for convenience provision of the agreement, which in turn would entitle UHC to damages. The Housing Authority and UHC entered into extended settlement negotiations in an effort to reach a resolution and avoid arbitration or potential litigation. A settlement has been reached in the amount of $2 million. Staff recommends the settlement of this matter on acceptable terms for multiple reasons, which are including and not limited to the uncertainty in arbitration. While arbitration is generally faster than litigation in state court, arbitration adds an element of uncertainty and risk because of the limited ability to file litigation to overturn an arbitration's decision after the arbitration has been reached and a final decision has been made. In addition, there's the cost of arbitration. Under many circumstances, arbitration can be less costly than standard litigation. However, in this case, arbitration, including discovery, will likely be as expensive or more expensive than a state court litigation. There's been a delay in housing or in the Housing Authority being able to regain control of the property. UHC's failure to develop its second phase of the project has already prevented the timely development of the final portion of this important affordable housing site in the La Colonia neighborhood. Going through arbitration, including any potential litigation, would likely add even more years to the completion of this project. The severe shortage in affordable housing. Several of the Housing Authority's project-based voucher and public housing waitlists have not been opened or reopened since 2019 due to the lack of unit availability. It is imperative that the Housing Authority replaces the lost inventory and has the opportunity to pursue other opportunities to increase the number of affordable housing units. This is not possible with UHC's agreement in place. There's also the non-compliance on behalf of the Housing Authority with the SAC application. This is a HUD special application that was submitted in order to get the original approval to demolish and disposition the 260 housing units in accordance with Section 8 of the U.S. Housing Act of 1937. The Housing Authority has an existing obligation to HUD to develop the affordable housing units and the incidental costs that are associated with the expenses and the personal cost to maintain the vacant land, to address the trespassing issues and the daily loitering that continue to accumulate over time, having a negative impact on the Housing Authority's already limited budget, as well as a negatively impact on the community. The Housing Authority only has $1.2 million in unrestricted funds. Therefore, a gap in funding the $2 million settlement exists. Staff therefore proposes a loan agreement between the city and the housing authority that imposes performance requirements on the housing authority, and it will require default protections to protect the city. The loan will function similar to a grant because it will be forgivable and not require repayment as long as performance measures are met. The proposed terms would be as follows: a loan amount from the city of Oxnard of an amount of $800,000 to the housing authority from the city general fund 101. There will be a provision that the property must be developed with affordable housing reserved for household incomes at or below 80% AMI of Ventura County. There is a 10% default interest rate or the highest allowed by law in the event that the housing authority fails to perform. The loan will be automatically forgiven on the date of construction of affordable housing begins. Therefore, there are two recommendations: that the city council, one, adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager or designate to execute and take all needed actions in consultation with the city attorney relative to entering into a loan agreement with the Oxnard Housing Authority to partially fund the proposed settlement between the Oxnard Housing Authority and UHC 00558 Oxnard LP regarding the Las Cortes housing project in La Colonia neighborhood and other matters pertaining thereto, and two, authorize the fiscal year 2024-25 budget appropriation in the amount of $800,000 from the General Fund 101 available fund balance. And that the Board of Commissioners of the Oxnard Housing Authority, number one, adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the housing director to take all needed actions in consultation with general counsel relative to entering into a loan agreement with the city of Oxnard to partially fund the proposed settlement between the Oxnard Housing Authority and UHC 00558 Oxnard LP regarding the Las Cortes housing project in the Colonia neighborhood and other matters pertaining thereto. And number two, approve and authorize an appropriation in the amount of $1.2 million from the Housing Authority Central Fund, and three, authorize the write-off of bad debt associated with the promissory note that was entered into on June 1st, 2020, as amended and restated on January 1st, 2021 for demolition costs. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.